was phase 4, and there is obviously, it's not just about football, but that's what we're talking about on this show, so that's what grabbed my attention too. You hope that things do trend in a positive direction or continue to do so for a lot of reasons, but that's a big one because and he didn't put a timeline on what phase 4, when that could possibly be necessarily, like a hard timeline on it like he did with phase 3 starting next Monday, but no matter when it is, that is a huge step because, especially for football, like you said, because that's such a drastic difference. And there are a lot of things in phase 3 that are going to be a big difference when it comes to sports that will help out, and have allow for a lot more fans to be in the seats. But phase 4, man, if we get to that by football season and Memorial Stadium can be full, then that's amazing. That'll be really good for a lot of reasons, and I think that's what we're all hoping for. Kind of fingers crossed right now, but just the news that we're again moving in a positive direction with that, at least in this state, is great to hear.
When I saw the phase 3, one of the first things I thought of phase 3 it goes into effect starting Monday, is the Shrine Bowl, which is set for July 11th. That would be an outdoor event, and I have to go double check. I don't know that Kearney is one of the 3 counties not loosened up. I think Hall is. That's Grand Island, but I think Kearney is clear. So that would mean they could put 75% of capacity of UNK Stadium for the Shrine Bowl on July 11th. That would be big. The Shrine Bowl people have to be ecstatic hearing that. Also, indoor, phase 3 indoor, this is just starting Monday, up to 50% of occupancy, up to 10,000 people. If that's the phase we're in August, that would mean Husker volleyball could put about 4,000 people in the Devaney Center for a match. 50% of capacity to Devaney Center. So right there, that's phase 3. We hope to get to phase 4 by August. But for Husker volleyball, that's a pretty big nod, too, that you can put 4,000. That would be the capacity of the old Coliseum, right? It's only half of Devaney, but it'd be about as many people for years who used to go watch Husker volleyball in the Coliseum.
Right, and that's what it kind of seems like, is that they're probably not going to start the season at full capacity, but there's just such a big difference, too, between indoor and outdoor and the different things that you can do with that. So I do think that even if they're at 50% or 75% maybe eventually, that will still be a home court advantage for the Huskers, and I still think that you can go about a season like that and still be fine financially and complete a season with that. So I think that if, John Cook, if he's looking at this, I think that he's going to be okay and can go forward with some plans and schedule some home games, home court games, and I think that's perfectly fine with what that's going to look like too.
He did an interview over the weekend with the Omaha World-Herald where he did say they are already in conversations with UNO and Creighton to try to get them on a non-conference schedule, that they're trying to piece together a non-conference schedule that would be busable for either they go somewhere or somebody comes to Lincoln to play the Huskers. But the phase 3, again, that opens on Monday, if that is in effect in August, it would mean 50% capacity for the Devaney Center. I didn't write it down in my notes. I don't know what phase 4 indoors would be. I'd have to go back and dig that out. Also today, Husker men's basketball released their non-conference schedule for this coming year. Fred Hoiberg's second season as the head coach of the Cornhuskers. They will play an exhibition game against Peru State on Monday, November the 2nd. Their season opener will be on Tuesday the 10th against Cleveland State, whose head coach is Armand Gates' brother. Armand is one of the assistant coaches for the Cornhuskers. He is the head coach of Cleveland State. That's followed up with a home game on November 14th with Purdue-Fort Wayne. The Huskers then go to the Myrtle Beach Invitational that we've talked about quite a bit in the past. Come home on Wednesday the 25th to play Lamar. They are scheduled to have a home game in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. That'll be either November 30th, December 1st, or December the 2nd. They get Creighton at home on December the 12th. That is a Saturday. They go start a 3-year series with K-State at the Sprint Center in Kansas City on the 19th, and then they wrap up the non-con with a Monday, December 21st game with UMKC and finish it off on Tuesday, the 29th of December against Florida A&M. What were your thoughts when you looked through this schedule?
Well, we already knew a couple of the games that were going to be on there. The Kansas State one, which is cool, that's going to be down at the Sprint Center in Kansas City, had already been previously announced, which I'm really looking forward to that. And then, Creighton is on the schedule each year. We're going to be in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. So you kind of knew what those games were going to be, but then the rest of them you didn't really know. And I think that it makes sense. You went with what on paper it looks like a fairly light schedule outside of those games. And obviously we don't know what the Myrtle Beach Invitational, what those 3 games are going to be like. But outside of those games, I think that that's kind of what I expected it to be, with another squad coming in that doesn't have a ton of experience playing together. Probably a little bit more than last year, just because last year there was absolutely no experience whatsoever. So you're stepping in the right direction a little bit with that, and I think that I think that if the season goes on as it's scheduled, which we talked about last week, that we're not 100% sure if that's going to be the case. There could be a second wave of this thing and interrupt the season. But if it does go on as scheduled, I kind of like this non-conference schedule, what it looks like and how it's going to unfold. You kind of can gain some confidence in places, but also challenge yourself in a couple places too. And I'll be curious to know who the ACC opponent is going to be, and it'll be cool to have that as a home game this year. It's been on the road the last couple of seasons, so that'll be fun too. But overall, I think it'll be fun. A lot of home games, a lot of ways to be able to get some confidence as you head into what would, again, as always, going to be a really tough Big Ten schedule.
Yeah, and to anybody who's going to sit there and go, oh, come on. Remember, this is a program that won 7 games last year. They need to get some momentum, build some confidence, trying to piece together all these new faces in this thing. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look. The last time Nebraska didn't have a true road game in the non-conference schedule. They don't with this one. You had the Myrtle Beach tournament, 3 games there, neutral site. You play K-State, neutral site in Kansas City. Not one true road game in that non-conference schedule. But there it is. I think it's fine for year 2, particularly coming off a 7-win season and all the new faces this team is going to have. That's, to me, fits where you are right now as a program, and you certainly know that then have confidence that Fred Hoiberg's going to build this thing up, that thing's going to get beefed up quite a bit as he gets his program set and it gets better and better as a program. So that came out today. If you have some thoughts about that, we certainly can hear those tonight as well. So we've thrown a lot at you. 866-HUSKER, 1-866-487-5371. The number if you want to knot us up with a comment or question. We'll come back, and if we have a call, we'll sneak one in. If not, we'll get right to Jeremiah Searles, who we hear every Wednesday night with his Husker Huddle. We'll get into a lot of topics with Jeremiah. I do want to ask him about his thoughts about the national anthem controversy that the NFL is dealing with again. Jeremiah was in the league the last time this came up a couple of years ago. We'll see how he and the Vikings is who he was playing with at that time dealt with it and what he thinks about all that. We'll get into that coming up next. Sports Nightly, Monday night. Hope you had a good weekend. We do have a Runza Twitter poll that we've put up. Deals with the Husker men's basketball non-conference schedule. Which game are you most excited for the upcoming season? Your choice is Creighton, K-State, the Big Ten ACC Challenge game, or the Myrtle Beach Invitational. And not surprising, wide margin Creighton with the early jump in this one. It'll be a home game at PBA for that game as the Husker non-conference schedule announced earlier today. Well, we're delighted to be joined by our own Jeremiah Searles, who we hear each Wednesday night with a edition of Husker Huddle, where he sits down with a former Cornhusker. Jeremiah, great to have you with us here tonight. Hope you and your family are doing well.
Absolutely, man. Been hanging out with the little man. He's walking now, so I'm in full chase mode. Had to put all the locks on the cabinets and the drawers, and he's getting into everything now, but it's been super fun.
Very good. Well, hey, we've enjoyed hearing the Husker Huddles. I hope you've enjoyed putting those together for us every week. Absolutely, man. It's been an absolute blast. I've got to catch up with old teammates, which has been really cool. Different perspectives, and I love hearing former teammates' views on what they think Husker football is going to be like this year, because who knows? It's going to be a grab bag. So hearing former Huskers talk about what they might think and what they're doing now has been really, really fun to do. I want to ask you about team bonding activities, Jeremiah, because there was the Husker football account yesterday tweeted out a thing where the guys went out and apparently had a game of paintball, and it looked like they were having a blast out there. How important are things like that to build unity and trying to build cohesiveness within a locker room? It's huge. I mean, those things looks like kind of funny to the outside world, or they're not really sure what. I mean, it's like, why are they doing that? How does that pertain to football? But, I mean, football is a brotherhood, and football is about having your buddy's back and him having your back. And
really genuinely caring for those individuals. And sometimes it's hard to get 150 guys to do one activity where they're all common goal and working for something that's outside of football. So when you go do things like paintball or go to a movie or go do an outside community outreach event and you do it together, you start to build that brotherhood, that camaraderie off the field, which then just strengthens the bond on the field. It's where you become like, you can meet really good friends and you get views of different backgrounds of those, where conversations start on the bus ride of like their different views on things and where they're from, what they do, what their parents do, what your parents do. And you just start to dive deeper into the relationship more than just true teammate.
Do you remember cases like this when you played for Nebraska that you did group-type things like this?
Yeah, I mean, I remember Bo took us all bowling one time, which was a lot of fun. I mean, we went to the movies every Friday night before games, which was always fun because you got to go and then you talk about the movie, right? You talk about your viewpoint on the movie before or after the game, and you get to show people that. And then the big one that I always loved doing with Coach Bo, and I'm pretty sure they still do it, is we would always go to the hospitals before Thanksgiving. And, like, you do that as a team. You do that as a community outreach event. And you get to dive a little deeper into the emotional piece of it. And then, I mean, the program was one that came in, which was not exactly a fun outreach event or a fun event to do. But, again, it was that team bonding, that unity piece of all together as one working towards a common goal, which if you can create that on a more fun environment when it gets to the nitty-gritty of football and gets down to trying to win football games, it's just second nature. You don't have to try and combat two things at once of can we get everyone to agree on one thing.
Well, the social posts they put out yesterday looked like the guys were having a blast playing paintball, and it's probably hotter than Dickens when they were out there doing that yesterday. But
oh my goodness,
having a lot of fun. Jeremiah, I was going through a big situation right now, and I don't want to analyze what's going on with them, but there's been talk about poor comments being made inside of a weight room, inside of a locker room. Take me back to your playing days and talk about the banter within a locker room and how much is it poking fun at guys, trying to have fun with guys, but maybe right up against that line, but try not to cross that line. I'm sure there were situations you're like, ooh, that might have been a little too much, that comment from this teammate to that teammate. How much of that goes on? I'm sure quite a bit, particularly when you're in a weight room and you're trying to egg people on a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the locker room's it's the most unique place in the world, and whether the NFL or college, and I tell people that all the time because you bring guys, and especially in college, you bring 150 guys from 150 different backgrounds, and you shove them in a locker room together and say, you have to get along. And it's not like, oh, I don't want to get along. You have to at least respect each other to a point. And a lot of that respect and a lot of that fun does come at the poking fun of each other and making jokes and laughing and doing good activities and stuff together. But, yeah, there's been multiple times, I mean, it's NFL and college, it's not both, where something's said and everyone kind of goes on easy, like, oh, I don't know if that's okay, and then they either hash it out. And, I mean, there's been fights, there's been shoving matches, yelling matches, but at the end of the day, like, you respect each other enough that one apologizes or it gets brought up in a team meeting and it gets discussed and worked through and you move forward on it. But, I mean, that's kind of how you're supposed to deal with problems is they get brought to light, you talk about it, you discuss it, and you move forward instead of just drawing lines in the sand and saying, no, you can't do this because I believe this, you believe that. You don't have to necessarily believe in what each other are saying, but there has to be a mutual respect factor in what each other is saying. And if you don't have a mutual respect factor among the entire team, it's doomed for failure. So I've been a part of a lot of those conversations. They've always ended in good growth and good bonding. Again, it kind of galvanizes guys and brings them closer together. But there's definitely times where it can get uncomfortable in a locker room, but that's to be expected when you got a bunch of alpha males shoved into a locker room, and like you got to kind of sift through leaders and sift through guys that are not enough. I mean, too many Chiefs, not enough Indians type of thing, right?
No doubt. The anthem, certainly when you were playing in the NFL, that was when the first time it came up about whether the Kaepernick situation, kneeling. You had obviously some divisiveness within locker rooms about that. The league was really strong against kneeling, protesting for that. Take me back. What was that like for you in your locker room when all that was swirling around a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I mean, it was such a weird deal when it first happened because it kind of just happened out of nowhere. Kaepernick took the seat on the bench for the first time, And then he talked with Nate Boyer, I believe is his name, that was an old, I want to say he was in the Army or Marines maybe, and told, hey, it's actually more respectful if you take a knee rather than sit down. And so then he took the knee, and then it was this big controversial thing. And I think the Vikings said we're not going to take a knee, but we're going to lock arms for unity and show our strength together. But for me, it comes down to I'm not really sure the NFL did the right thing and now flip-flopping and going back and saying, well, now you can kneel because we agree with you now. I think that every citizen's right is you have a chance to kneel. If you want to kneel to protest police brutality, absolutely, then you should be allowed to. But I think the NFL then has a little bit more of it's like company time, so they do have a right to say something as long as you can or cannot. But it definitely was a decisive time. But again, those decisive times brought out great conversations in the locker room. They brought up great conversations that allowed you to educate yourself from a different person's background off of what, because maybe, I mean, again, I was sitting there like, I've never had a really bad run-in with a police officer. And then you have teammates that talk stories of, well, I've had this run-in and that run-in, and it's turned out this way, that way, or whatever way. And, I mean, it just allowed, again, an open dialogue to be brought forth, and then we move forward from it. And so to see where we've come back full circle now about 4 years later is very interesting to see the different point of views that really have just changed since that first time that Kaepernick took that knee.
So you do remember conversations happening in that Vikings locker room in and around that time, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we had conversations about it of, do we stand? Do we kneel? Like, what do we do? What do we decide? And we ultimately decided as a team we would decide what to do together. And we decided we were going to stand and link arms, or if you wanted to stand and put your hand over your heart, like that's what you could do. But we decided that if we weren't going to have one guy kneel, then none of us were going to kneel. And so we decided that none of us were going to kneel with the Vikings. I mean, some teams decided to have guys, but then the NFL ultimately came out and said no kneeling. So that kind of put the ownership on the NFL of like, okay, we'll just do what they say. But yeah, there's definitely conversations, I mean, some heated conversations that got brought up about the whole idea of why are we kneeling versus what are we kneeling for, I think is what, and now it's become more clear. I mean, a lot of times people initially looked at it as you were attacking the flag, attacking the veterans, attacking this country. But really it's to stand up for this country because they don't feel like the flag is being represented in the right way. And once you kind of have that conversation, which is the biggest thing, you just have to have those conversations, have those discussions so that you can understand everyone's viewpoint. Don't just, again, draw the line in the sand and say, you're disrespecting America, so I don't like it. It's like, well, why are they doing that? Why are they kneeling? Why are they protesting? And then if you can educate yourself, then you can make your own informed decision and you can decide to kneel or stand.
The teams aren't together right now. I mean, they're still apart. I don't think there's been any OTAs yet. I think those may be coming. But don't you imagine this is going to be a big topic before we kick the football off in the fall for the NFL? Don't you imagine there's going to be a lot of these discussions going on inside these locker rooms?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a very interesting because, again, yeah, they're all Zoom meetings right now, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's not a lot of time to get it brought up. You got a 2-hour Zoom meeting. The coaches aren't going to waste a lot of that time right now because they just every second is precious talking about the anthem. They're talking about X's and O's, right? They're talking about getting installs, getting who's going to be lined up where and how they're going to do this. And it's such a weird time that, I mean, once training camp comes around, though, that first preseason game is about to kick off, there's going to need to be a big discussion had so that there's no really decisiveness or divisiveness or people getting mad at each other on live TV, right? I mean, it's going to have to be discussed about, and I think that ultimately, in my opinion, the best way that it needs to be taken care of is by a team-by-team basis of, hey, what are we doing as a team to show our unity, to show that we're one together? Because, again, this goes all the way back to your first question about the Huskers in paintball, right? You have to have, in the NFL, all 90 guys in that initial preseason that gets down to 53 on the same page fighting for the same goal, no matter where their backgrounds come from, no matter where they stand in their beliefs and religion and politics or whatever, like that all goes to the wayside when it's time to step on the gridiron. You need to be ready to achieve the common goal of winning a football game. And so you've got to make sure you eliminate those distractions beforehand and by coming to agreement as a team on what you want to do. The problem is I don't know if you're going to find a team that will all agree to stand or all agree to kneel. And I think that's okay. But again, you got to make sure that you have those discussions and you have those talks so that everyone can understand where everyone's coming from and be okay with it, that, hey, I respect you and I understand where you're coming from and where you sit. This is where I stand with it. This is where I sit with it. And this is what I'm going to do, but it's no way, shape, or form disrespectful to whatever you're doing, whether it's kneeling, standing, hand over your heart. I think everyone should have their own opportunity to do what they want to do.
Well, we'll certainly be following this as we get closer to kickoffs coming up here, hopefully in about 2 months. All right, coming up on Wednesday's Husker Huddle, you're going to sit down with Blake Lawrence, and boy, he's right in the middle of all this name, image, likeness. I know you have already recorded this one for this Wednesday night. What stood out to you about your chat with Blake Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, I had a great discussion with Blake. He's such a smart guy. He's hilarious, first of all. But, I mean, he's such an educated human being when it comes to the name, image, likeness piece, because he was really before his time with this. And we get into that with this conversation. I mean, he started Open Doors in 2012 when no one really understood what that even did, was talking about monetizing social media value, to now everything from advertising to building a brand, everything is via social media. And so he has all this back research on it. And then for him to be able to put actual numbers and data into why certain guys make certain amounts of money based off of so much data, followers, engagement, is just awesome. And he gets super technical with it, which I love, talking about how important all this stuff is. So it's a super good listen. You get super informed on the name, image, likeness argument, which there's so many arguments for it, against it. It's just a really good, factual, informative piece on what they're doing, especially at Open Doors with the NCAA.
Well, great. We'll look forward to hearing that on Wednesday. We certainly have enjoyed all these. Jeremiah, thank you so much. Have a great week. It's been a busy and disturbing 7 to 10 days for the Iowa Hawkeye football program, and they made some moves today. They announced that they have parted ways with their longtime strength and conditioning coach, Doyle. He's been relieved of his duties, so they have separated from him. They also have hired a group to review the practices within their athletic department, and in particular the football program, to see what changes could be made. Their athletic director, Gary Barta, had a press conference today. Head coach Kirk Ferentz had one on Friday. Gary Barta today saying that they have retained the services of this group that will do an internal investigation that he says should take weeks, not months. No hard date on when that will be finished. It'll obviously depend on what they learn about that. But Chris Doyle, longtime strength and conditioning coach, I think he may have been there the entire time of Kirk Ferentz's career, is gone at Iowa after some reports came up in the last week to 10 days about some inappropriate language that he used around African-American players for the Iowa program. And then that certainly, it wasn't just an isolated incident. There were an awful lot of young men who jumped to the forefront to say, yeah, I second that. And so it really has become a handful for the Iowa program, and it cost their strength coach, Chris Doyle, his job, and probably rightfully so, Josh, if you hear some of the things that were reportedly said.
Yeah, no, when you start diving into what some of the different stories were from players and knowing that that's probably not all of what happened, you just kind of start to get a little bit of a picture, then yes, you're right. There's definitely cause there for parting with him as strength coach. And the thing is, though, then, like you said, that there's obviously this isn't it. Then you have to start digging a little bit deeper. Was it just the strength and conditioning coach? Was he the only one that interacted with players this way? And I think, like we said last week when we were talking about this, I don't think that it's over. It wasn't over last week, and obviously that came true today with him leaving the program. But then I still don't think it's over. I think that there will be more coming from this, and it might not be the last thing that comes from this. And so I think that for right now, from what we know of the story, that I think that what has been done so far is correct and good. And I think that there obviously does need to be some more digging, which it looks like Iowa's going to do.
One thing that's for certain, it's a distraction, and it could really disrupt the Iowa season program.
Yep.
Moving forward. Coaches do not like distractions of any kind. This is a major one that Iowa is dealing with, and they're getting everybody back on campus and working out and trying to build things. I mean, look at the contrasted pictures. You got the Husker team out playing paintball and look like they're having a great time, and you got Iowa with a lot of infighting going on. Hey,
Right.
it's not a healthy thing for them, and I'm not trying to say Nebraska doesn't have any issues at all. We probably do, and trying to work through all those too. But Iowa certainly is a distracted program right now that they're having to deal with that over in Iowa City.
Yeah, and I think that if you're an Iowa fan, if you're coming from their perspective, you can say, well, hopefully, this kind of takes care of it, and there will be some good that will come from it, and there will be some team unity that comes from being able to bring all these issues to the surface, and hopefully everybody, after all this is, hashed out, everybody can kind of be like, okay, we have some steps going forward, and you can create some team unity. But like you said, right now, it's a big distraction. It's what everybody over in that athletic department and in that locker room, it's what they're thinking about. It's what they're talking about with each other. They're not really thinking too much about the upcoming football season, and so once that starts to come around, I think that they probably will still be a distracted football team. So I think there's a chance for some good to come from it, and for them to be able to talk about it like what we've been saying on the show for a while. But it's definitely a distraction right now for them.
I found the conversation with Jeremiah Searles fascinating. I hope people enjoyed that, because he talked about the inner workings of a locker room, and that debates go on, and then heated arguments go on, but then you come together because you listen to each other's point of view, and you find some common ground, and you work from there. Iowa they'll get to that point. They're not there yet, but they'll probably get to that point. So I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Jeremiah, because there's a guy that's been right in the heat of all that, both at the college level and the NFL level when they were dealing with the national anthem controversy a couple of years ago. Need to work a break in, 866-HUSKER-1, 866-487-5371. More of the show coming up, 866-HUSKER-1, 866-487-5371. The number if you want to dial us up with a comment or question. What did you do this weekend? Did you get outside and take advantage of the warm weather?
Got outside a little bit, and it was a little bit warm, but did some yard work. We're repainting our porch, so thankfully that's at least in the shade a little bit, so we can work on that where it's a little bit cooler. But yeah, it's nice to. I'm glad. I told Ben this the other day that I'm really glad that we're into the warm weather, and I'll take this 90-degree weather over the 0 degrees that we see in the winter any day of the week. I'm totally a warm weather guy, summer guy. I can go outside in shorts and a t-shirt, and it's great. So yeah, 100% enjoying the weather.
This would have been the opening weekend of the College World Series.
I saw that. There was you saw the people tweeting about it. Tom Chattel did a story, went down there. Kyle Peterson of ESPN.
They got tossed out of there, didn't they? Those two guys.
They did. They got thrown out. How about that? That was funny. It's like, come on, you know who these guys are. They should be able. You should let them in the park. Come on.
They were just peeking through the gate, and they got told to get out of there. What the heck?
That was a funny story. But it is sad, though, to think about. That would be the start of it this weekend. We'd be playing tonight, and yeah, it's hard to think about.
Those day games, Saturday, Sunday, and today. Whew, you would have roasted in that, right?
Toasty.
Sitting in that stuff. Wow.
Yeah. Yikes.
But wouldn't you know, there's been like no rain.
No rain.
It has been. They would have no delays.
Yep.
And this is the time where you can really get backed up with those first couple of days until you eliminate a few teams. But it's sad. It'll come back. We'll get it back next June. It'll be back roaring and ready. And hopefully the volleyball Final Four will take place in Omaha as scheduled in December. Want to thank Jeremiah Searles. Really enjoyed sitting down. We need to have him on more often than just the Husker Huddles. We certainly will. Once we get into football season, we'll make him a regular contributor during the football season with us here on Sports Nightly. That was fun. We had a lot of topics here on this hour of Sports Nightly. Also, this hour, Jake Muehlheisen, Husker color analyst, is going to join us to talk about this non-conference schedule that got released today. We'll have that. We'll have our SNBL recap as we're now in the playoffs. Austin just informed you of that during our sports ticker. We'll have our weekend winners coming your way later on in the hour as well. But right now, let's get ready to talk some college basketball. The Huskers earlier today did make the announcement of their non-conference schedule that came out. We knew parts of this. We knew the Huskers were part of the Myrtle Beach Invitational that's going to take place the week before Thanksgiving. Not Thanksgiving week, but the week before Thanksgiving. We knew that they'd have a home game with Creighton. The 3-year series with K-State's been announced with games this year in Kansas City at the neutral site. Then it will go Lincoln and Manhattan. But we didn't know all of it until today. And Jake Muehlheisen is joining us now on our Woodhouse Auto Family Sports Nightly Hotline. Jake Muehlheisen, how the heck are you?
Greg, I'm doing pretty good, man. How are you?
Good. I hope you and your family are all healthy fighting through this. How wild is it, Jake, to think back to March and that you and Kent called practically the last college basketball game of the year? I mean, isn't that crazy how that worked out?
It was nuts, and I don't think anybody saw this coming quite to the extent that we've seen. But, sitting there in Indy, Kent and I looked at each other and go, man, we're going to get stuck here for 2 weeks. And then obviously things transpired. We got home. But, we basically called the last college basketball game of the year. Crazy stuff, and just heartbreaking to not have March Madness, one of everybody's favorite sporting events of the year, to have that taken away from the players and the fans of those teams that made it and deserved bids. It's just a shame that took place. A lot has happened with the Husker program since that night in Indy where you and Kent signed off, almost a complete makeover of this team. What do you make of the roster that Coach Hoiberg and this staff have put together? I think they've done a really nice job of adding some pieces, and I think the guys that we have returning from last year, mainly Ivan and Thor, they're going to be big pieces. And I think with the guys that we had coming in, the transfers, there's a lot of experience on there. Obviously, they haven't played for Nebraska quite yet, but there's a lot of games under these guys' belt, and I think that'll help a ton going into this year where you didn't have the typical summer sessions and things like that where teams are together and playing and getting to know one another off the court and on the court. So I think it's going to be a big positive for these guys to have the experience that we have. And I think, the guys sitting out last year, Shamil Stevenson, Derek Walker, and Delano Banton, they've been in the system. They know it. And we're going to be big. We obviously didn't do a great job rebounding last year, but we're going to have some athletes out there that can rebound and push the basketball down the floor, and it's going to be exciting to watch.
How much fun do you think it would be to play in that system?
Oh, I think it'd be awesome. I think Coach Hoiberg and his staff puts these guys in spots where they can really, really thrive. And you look at a guy like Delano Banton, where he might start at the 4 for us this year, and then when somebody subs in, he might slide to the point guard. But he puts guys in spots. And what I like about it, if Thor hits a 3 like he did last year, the next set down the floor, they're running something for him just to get guys in a rhythm and score. And I think they have the green light anytime they want, but it's imperative in this system that we have rebounding. We didn't have that last year, and I think we have the guys that can do that now and finish at the rim. We got to the rim a ton last year as well. We just didn't do a good job of converting those bunnies. So you guys got Teddy Allen and Delano and Shamil Stevenson, Kobe King coming in from Wisconsin. We're going to have some height and some length, so hopefully those guys can finish at the rim.
I know it was a really disappointing year, very light on wins, and yet most games, not all, but most games, that team was right there, hanging around, leading at halftime, making a run in the second half. There were moments where you're going, I don't know how they're getting it done, because they weren't the most overly talented team. They're one of the smallest teams in America, and yet – a lot of games, Jake, they were kind of right there. If they just had another playmaker here or there, or a little bit bigger guy for this spot, it could flip the script on that game. And so I don't know that they're as far away as some people think. You saw them night in and night out. What do you make of how quickly can they close a gap in the league?
I think they can, and you hit it on the head where we were in games that quite frankly we probably shouldn't have been, and we were undersized and didn't have the guys that Coach Hoiberg really wants and recruited. But they did a great job as a staff putting together an offensive game plan, and then Doc obviously doing a great job on the defensive end. And then you have to give credit to the players for buying in. They never gave up. And you saw that from the entire conference season when we were playing Northwestern at home for trying to get out of the cellar of the Big Ten, but they always played hard where they bought in the system. And I think that's what's going to transfer over to next year with the 3 guys sitting out. You have Ivan and Thor coming in, and those guys are extremely high IQ basketball players. And then you have some really good experience filling in the gaps. So those guys get in here this summer and really watch some film, learn the system, and they all buy in and play non-selfish basketball. I think the gap is not that great. I think these guys can come in and make some noise, and just looking at on paper, we're going to be much more competitive here in 20 and 21.
Visiting with Jake Muehlheisen, Husker color analyst for Husker men's basketball here on Sports Sunday. Okay, the non-con came out today. What'd you make of the non-conference slate?
I think it's good. I like the first couple, at home, some winnable games obviously, and then you got to go on the road at some neutral sites in Myrtle Beach. There's some good teams there. You got Mizzou, you got Utah State with Craig Smith there, so we're gonna have a big test there at a neutral site. And then obviously we have Creighton at home this year. They're going to be really good. They're in mid-December, so that'll be fun to have at PBA. And then it's going to be fun going and playing against K-State again. I think that's awesome that we're playing some old Big 12 teams and getting that going again. Hopefully that continues. Maybe we can get some get KU back here or Mizzou or even play Iowa State again. But I think the non-con slate is really good. I think it gets some games early that we can get some confidence and play a lot of guys, hopefully, and then you go on a neutral site game in November and play some really high-quality, high-major teams.
You got a chance to play two old Big 8 teams. Missouri's in that tournament, as you mentioned. I wouldn't be shocked. They haven't put the pairings out yet, but it would not shock me if they matched Nebraska and Missouri up in that first round. That would be fun to see them. And I'm with you on the K-State series. I know it's going to be neutral site, then home and home. I think that's fantastic. It's an easy trip to make. You can jump on a bus, be there in a couple of hours. The two schools have played for 100 years. I think it's great that that's back on there. And you're right on Creighton. Creighton's going to be a really good basketball team. And I'm glad to see the ACC come back here. I think you guys had back-to-back road games in that ACC challenge.
Yeah, we did, and it'll be interesting to see who we get matched up with. But it's fun to play, against the other high major conference, and having the ACC team come back here would be awesome. I just, we don't know, what's going to happen as far as fans go. But I just hope that the fans are able to go watch these guys and really get to PBA. I think once we get off to a really good start, I think that's going to be a really tough ticket to get. I think the atmosphere at PBA will be great, and I think it's going to be a really fun brand of basketball to watch with the guys they brought in, and I'm excited for it. I think it's the non-con slate is really good. It sets up good for this team that hasn't played a lot of games in a Nebraska uniform. Get out there and get some experience in front of the Husker fans, and then go play against some high quality opponents.
Have you been around many guys that improved as much as Thor did last year, Jake? I mean, the monumental leap he made from one year to the next seems like it was a Grand Canyon jump for him.
It was. I mean, you look back at his sophomore and junior season. Obviously, he played out of necessity at the end of the year, his sophomore year, and played well for us. But I don't think anybody saw the jump that he made from year to year, where he was a guy that Hoiberg and those guys could count on. He was consistent. He's an underrated defender. He's not the most fleet of foot, but he's really crafty and staying in front of his guy. Gets a lot of steals, and he makes plays for his teammates in the offensive end. And just his improvement in shooting was tremendous. So it just showed how hard he worked in the offseason. And another guy too. We talked about Ivan Ouedraogo, where from start to finish last year he improved tremendously as well. So hopefully he's in the gym working out, because I think he could see a huge jump from his freshman to sophomore year as well.
Jake, is ideally he a 5 or a 4?
I think Ivan's probably more of a 5, just because he can't stretch with his perimeter shooting. But he has a good looking stroke. You saw that obviously he didn't make a high clip at the free throw line, but it's not like it was ugly like trying to watch Shaq at the free throw line or something like that. It was actually it looked like it was a good confident stroke. So I guarantee he's working on that, but I think he's more of a 5, back to the basket, maybe stretch out to 10, 12 feet. But he showed some things there later in the year and what he can become.
Very good. Well, hey, a little birdie told me, I don't know, that there's some good golf courses around Myrtle Beach. Is that accurate at all? Would that be maybe part of the game? Because you do have a day off in the middle of that tournament down there.
Now you're putting some good ideas in my head, so I haven't even got that far yet. I'm just happy to be out of the house, getting out and about right now, so I haven't even got that far yet, but that's a dang good idea. I'll have to look into that for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a Thursday, Friday, off day Saturday, and then you wrap it up on Sunday. I think it's because ESPN takes a break on Saturday and does college football, and then they come back and pick up these tournaments. So you got a whole off day, at Myrtle Beach, there's got to be something you can find to do that day. Now, whether you can get Ken out of the hotel room, I don't know. But you shouldn't have to stick around, lay around the hotel.
You know that he's always telling me that he's grinding with his getting his spotting board ready and all of his prep work. So I'm going to guess that I'm not going to get him out of the hotel room.
Jake, we appreciate it. Good to hear from you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and look forward to some hoops coming up here in a few months.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Greg. Appreciate it.
You bet. Jake Muehlheisen with us on our Sports Nightly Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. That's probably not going to be your trip, right, Josh? I mean, we're right in the height of football season. You're probably going to have to sit that one out.
Yeah, usually what we do with those trips that come around Thanksgiving during football season is send Brett on one of those. So that's probably going to be the case, which is unfortunate. But, yeah, last year Brett went to the Cayman Islands, which that's about as unfair as it gets, but that's the way it worked out. So it's all right. That's the way it worked out.
You could get the Kansas City trip, take Victoria. The lights of the plaza are beautiful around Christmas time. You could go down there and spend a weekend in KC.
Oh, yeah. That one is 100% on my wish list of one that I want to travel to.
Well, here you go. Are the Chiefs home on Sunday?
I'll have to check that.
Well, you got to check that out.
I'm checking that out right now. That
you could work the Husker game on Saturday and then stay the night and go see the Chiefs on Sunday if they're home.
I'm looking it up right now.
No, Austin, is that right? Come on,
Austin. We're so close.
That would have been too perfect. You could have spent the night going to see the Chiefs play the next day.
Come on.
Well, I was trying to help you there.
Good thought.
Yeah, doggone it. We appreciate Jake joining us. 866-HUSKER-1, 866-487-5371. We've been pretty positive on the show tonight. I'm going to drag it down to the next segment because we're going to talk about Major League Baseball that cannot get out of its own way. We'll update you on that mess next. Remember, if you want to dot us up with a comment or question, let's go to the phones. Head out to Grand Island and Mike. Good evening, Mike. Welcome to Sports Nightly.
Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to put in my 2 cents before you probably start talking about how depressing it is. But Major League Baseball really can't afford to, miss time, but to give such a black eye of sorts on the sport itself because, they're squibbling over money when a lot of people aren't working still or just now getting back, and it's really a bad look for them. And I just read an interesting article on ESPN today that just basically laid it out that both sides can't even agree to have a discussion. And I'll hang up and listen to your comment.
All right, Mike, thanks. Josh?
Yeah, it is. It's bad. Like, there's no way around it. You can try to make arguments for why, the players are fine coming from this perspective because of this, like you're on the player side. But even if you're defending the players in this, they still are not playing baseball, and they're still pointing fingers. And no matter how you look at it, this is bad. It's really bad. And the commissioner last week said that no matter what, there's 100% going to be a baseball season. And then today he made comments that backtracked on that and said, it's not looking so good. And basically pointed it back at the players, saying that this is, they don't even want to have a discussion, like Mike said there. So it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter who's to blame here. If a baseball season doesn't happen, this is, to me, even worse than the 1994 strike. Like, because it comes at a time where people want it to be played more than any other time. They want sports to be played. They want a season. And if they can't even come up with anything, they can't even come out on a baseball field and play a season at all, that's going to be really, 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 really bad for the sport. And because there are so many people, there are probably still people that haven't come back from the 1994 strike. And then there's a whole new generation that are kind of like, baseball is okay, but I don't really care about it too much. It's not a quick enough pace, blah, blah. And so then those people, there's no way that they're going to be wanting to have anything to do with baseball if they don't have a season. You're just going to lose so much of the population of fans that if they don't come out and play this year.
Yeah, what's got everybody in a huff right now is about 3-4 hours ago, the commissioner did come out and say he doesn't think we're going to have baseball this summer, and that's what's now send this into a spiral. What really scalds me, and a lot of things about this does, but the sports world came to a halt March 15-ish, right in that time. They've had all this time to get this thing figured out. And it was like they took the next 6 weeks off and didn't talk to each other. That was dead. They should be playing right now. They should be like the PGA, back playing. You've got youth sports already back on the diamond in a lot of states in this country playing ball. We've seen college exhibition games on ESPN in the last week or so that they're playing ball. They should have gotten this all figured out in late March and April and said, all right, whenever we are, here's the breakout, here's what we're going to do. We're going to aim for a June 1st. But it's like they all went on a vacation and didn't talk to each other. And then they're going, oh, now I think we can go. Let's shoot for July. They have completely, and both sides have completely muddled this whole thing up.
At the very least, they should have been playing their quote-unquote spring training games right now, getting ready for a season in a couple weeks. And the fact that they started the discussion so late, that makes me angry. And the fact that both sides are just not even close on what they want to do. Like they're starting on completely opposite ends of a spectrum, knowing full well and putting out proposals full well knowing that the other side isn't even going to look at it. They're not even going to be like, well, we agree with this and this and this, but let's maybe change this. They're not even close to even having a discussion. They're having their own two different sides having their own discussions with each other and then blaming the other in the media, and it's such a bad look. It's a bad look. And here's the other thing that I think that is almost more disappointing or worrisome, depending on how you look at it, is there's a new collective bargaining agreement that's coming up soon. And so over the next couple of years, they're going to be trying to hammer that out. And if you don't have a season this year, it's going to be in the wake of not even having a season. It's going to be just so ugly from no matter how you look at it. It's going to get bad.
The current CBA ends at the end of the 2021 season. So next year they're fine. Then they could be in a – and a lot of people think that both sides are already posturing for that battle. And so that this has already started it here instead of trying to get through this thing. I want to bring Austin and see if he has some thoughts about this. But you're absolutely right. They should have been ready June 1st to start playing a couple of weeks of spring training type games and then go. And yet they just kind of both parties stood on the side. I'm not picking a side. I think they're both at fault in this deal.
Yep.
But Austin, I mean, you're a younger fan than Josh or I are, so maybe you're not quite as invested in this. Well, where do you come down on this whole thing?
I'm incredibly invested. You know, I wasn't around for the '94 strike, but I love baseball. Some of my favorite memories growing up were, hanging out with my friends on the diamond, playing ball, Coach Dad throwing BP, getting out there with my brothers, all of that. And it really makes me sad to see that baseball is maybe losing some fans. Maybe baseball does appeal to an older audience, on average. But we need people my age and younger to love baseball, not just to like baseball, not just to play it as their second sport. It just makes me so sad to see baseball miss its opportunity. How much fun would it have been to get Ronald Acuna Jr.'s face in front of people, as exciting as he can be, Juan Soto, Mike Trout, the list goes on. And the most damning part of it to me is how tonight, Rob Manfred is on ESPN on a program with six commissioners of the major sports. 5 of them have a plan in place to play their sport. The one that doesn't, Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm. Josh is right. Both sides gave just ridiculous proposals. The owner said, let's play 50 games. Well, why bother? What? Then the players go, well, let's play 114, which would take the season into November. You can't do that. You can't play postseason baseball when snow's on the ground in Minneapolis or Chicago or New York. You can't do that either. So both sides came at it from complete – in fact, this season's really kind of a wash anyway. It's going to be just a weird year. Whether they play 75, 50, whatever, it's going to be a wash because it's not going to be a legitimate type season, and it's going to have an asterisk by it forever if they get on the diamond. So it's a complete mess. Maybe they should just fold it up and say, we'll see it spring training in February and just go to there. I don't know.
It's just so sad to think about, though, because and it goes back to the what ifs. What if they had been able to start playing right now, and they had such a good opportunity to get fans back. And this kind of comes in the wake of last night's 30 for 30 about the McGuire and Sosa home run chase, and how the entire premise of that was that baseball needed that. They needed that after the '94 strike to get back in the good graces of fans, and it did. It brought people back in the stands. And now we're seeing they had the chance to bring back a lot of the fans over the last few years that have been like, well, I don't really like baseball because it's not quick enough pace, blah, blah, blah. You had the chance to get those people back in the stands, back on board, because you could have been playing right now when there were no other sports going on. People wanted sports so bad, and they still do, but they could have been locked in. You could have been prime time on all TV, and everybody would have been watching. And like Austin said, you could have gotten the young players in front of everybody, and they could have fallen in love. And maybe it wouldn't have. Maybe the collective bargaining agreement and that discussion going forward would have still been ugly and bad, but at least you would have had this season. They really missed their opportunity here.
All right. We're all depressed because we all love baseball. and you sit there and you look at the Korean baseball league. It's been playing since the 1st of May. And their country was hit, maybe not quite as hard with the virus as we were, but they got it figured out. They're playing games, no crowds. They're playing games. They're getting worldwide attention because they're the only game in town. And for Major League Baseball, and I think the state of Iowa started their prep season today. They started playing their high school seasons. We're going back and play their high school. They're getting it done today. And I think games around the state of Nebraska for youth baseball started today. And here are the Major League boys who've had months to get this figured out. It's really, really bad. Well, we've had fun with the Major League Baseball players with SNBL. We're going to come back, give you an update on that. If you have some more thoughts about the MLB and the strike or anything we've talked about on the program tonight, phone lines are open for you at 866-HUSKER-1, 866-487-5371. Been hearing it in our sports tickers today, but our SNBL league has made it to the playoffs. Let's go back and just recap the end of the regular season, Josh. We had a handful of teams get over 100 wins during the regular season, paced by your Mammoths.
Yeah, the Mammoths finished with, I think, 106 wins. You were not far behind. The Harriers were 104. Farmers, the fans team, also got to 100 wins. They were at 103, right behind you in that NL East division. And then both the Lions and the Rowboats finished with 100 wins. I think the Lions with 101 and the Rowboats with right at an even 100. They got that on the last day of the regular season. So we had 5 different teams, 5 of the 8 user teams finish with over 100 wins in the regular season.
Pretty good stuff. So the playoffs, the teams of the user teams, you obviously won your division. You have home field all the way through the playoffs in the AL West. The wild cards in the American League were Austin's Rowboats and the Roar Lions, who Nate's team battled the injury bug all season long, but came roaring back in the second half of the season to get home field for the wild card. But Austin, that didn't matter at all today, did it?
Not one bit. We were questioning Nate's decision to start Mike Fiers instead of Corey Kluber, but that didn't seem to make a difference. Fiers let up 4, Kluber let up a few as well. So
it was a fire sale.
No pun intended. One mic dropped, and one mic dropped the mic. Mike Clevenger with the mic drop, 7 1/3 strong. So, we also brought up the disappointing comeback, the impressive comeback Nate's team made. They were down 11-2, came back to beat me 12-11 not long ago, and I think that really fueled my guys. We topped Nate on the last day of the season for our 100th win, and still fueling us to this day.
So you took him out, so now that sets up a divisional matchup between you and Josh that'll begin tomorrow. And opposite you guys are the Twins and the Tampa Bay Rays. They'll be playing for the right to meet your winner in the American League Championship Series. So that starts tomorrow. Any trash talk between the two of you here tonight?
I mean, a little bit. We have to. Here's the thing: during the regular season we played, I think, 6 times on stream, and Austin got the better of me 4 of those 6 times. So he even though I won the division, he has the leg up in my eyes going into the series. So I can't talk too much trash with him because he's gotten me during the regular season. I just need to come in and take care of business. But we were talking today on stream, you and I, Greg, that I didn't really feel good no matter who I played, the Lions or the Rowboats. I wasn't really excited about meeting either one in the divisional series. So I'm pretty nervous going into this one, I'll have to admit.
And it's best of 5, right? Starting tomorrow with game 1.
Yep, best of 5.
All right, to the National League, my Harriers were the winners of the NL East, and the team I feared a lot was the fans team. The fans voted on team. The Farmers, they finished just 1 game behind me for for the division. They had home field today against Ben's Outlaws. And what a pitching performance from Ben's Madison Bumgarner. He was terrific today.
Well, he went up against the NL Cy Young Award winner, Garrett Cole. 21-2 is what Cole finished the season with. He was just dominant for the Farmers all season. Madison Bumgarner was the trade deadline pickup for Ben's Outlaws. And, I mean, betting favorites were the Farmers for sure. They came in, barely missed out on the division crown. They had a late surge, and they just have a potent lineup. They had Cole on the mound. It all seemed to set up for them at home. But Mad Bum, who we know in real life has always thrived in the postseason, he showed up again today and just really, he pitched well. He shut down the Farmers, went 8 strong. We thought he might come out for the 9th inning, but didn't matter. And then the other thing, too, coming into the game, Ben made a few lineup tweaks. He put Pete Alonso up in his order, and he put Babe Ruth up a little bit higher in his order. And both of those moves paid off as those two guys both had good days. Pete Alonso drove in a couple of runs, and Babe Ruth went deep with a solo shot, which is all they needed to win 3-1.
So we're down to 8 teams left. I will now take on Ben's team in a best-of-5. And the other part of the National League has the Brewers taking on the Dodgers. And so the winner of that series will take on the winner of Ben's series with me for the National League Championship Series. I think some of the lineup changes Ben made threw Garrett Cole off. I don't think he was ready to see the Babe hitting in the 2-hole and Pete Alonso hitting in the 3-hole. I think it paid off. And Austin, you tweaked a couple things to do with your lineup. I think maybe those changes paid big dividends today in the wild card games.
Ben kind of spat my lineup change back in my face. I had Shohei Ohtani DHing instead of Alex Verdugo. He's become kind of a cult hero in the city of Pittsburgh. He's had a number of big moments. He's come up pretty clutch. But, I drafted Shohei Ohtani for a reason. It wasn't to bench him come playoff time, so I'm looking like I found my DH for the postseason. 1 for 4 with a walk wasn't great, but, got to trust my guy, run him in the batter's box a couple games and keep him on the mound a game or two potentially. So
now the 2 owners' teams that did not make the playoffs were Brett's People Eaters and Tim's Cthulhu's. But Brett's team, and we kidded about this on the stream today, actually won more games than Ben's, but he was in the opposite league. He couldn't get in the playoffs. And Tim's team, after kind of a stumbling couple of months, really played pretty good baseball the last 6-7 weeks and finished with a respectable record.
Well, they sure did, and Tim's team, the Cthulhu's, they had Stan Musial, who ended up being the NL MVP because he was a Triple Crown winner, leading the National League in home runs, runs batted in, and batting average. So that was impressive. And then, like you said, Brett had some bragging rights, too, finishing with a better record than Ben's team, who won their wild card game. So I think it was really tight competition, and it could have gone a lot of different ways. There were a lot of good players on these teams. So you mentioned earlier, too, Nate's team, they kind of got the short end of the straw with the injuries. And, they had Mike Trout out for a while. They had Shane Bieber get hit in the head with a line drive, and he had a broken skull, so he was out for the entire season, basically.
It's not funny.
It's really not. But I think that we all had solid teams. It could have gone a lot of different ways, but we're down to 4 user teams now. You, Ben, Austin, and myself are the owners of those teams. So I think we're pretty sure that 2 of those 4 teams are going to meet for the World Series here in a little bit.
Starts at 11 o'clock Monday through Friday on Twitch. You can access it via, we put out a tweet usually right at the top of the hour at 11 o'clock, and you can access it off that. We do have an open chat room. You can come in and chat with us. We talk about all kinds of things, mostly baseball, but we'll delve into some Husker stuff as well. We've had so much fun with this over the last couple of months. It certainly filled our time with not having Major League Baseball going on, and we've really enjoyed it, and we certainly thank Dorothy Lynch for sponsoring SNBL for the last couple of years. And we probably still have about 2.5 weeks left of this coverage, again, Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock. So we're looking forward to that. All right, on Monday night, Greg Sharp, Josh Hokum, and Austin Orman. Time for this week's weekend winners. Josh, you want to lead us off?
I will lead us off. My weekend winner is Dave Revson, and a few people that he tweeted about over the weekend. Yesterday, he put together a thread on Twitter. He's the BTN studio host. He talked about some family friends that he had and their kids who lived in Chicago and were going to get married, but then were going to postpone the wedding, but they decided to go ahead with the wedding anyway and asked if they could have the ceremony in the backyard of the Revsons. And so that ended up happening. They had a wedding ceremony, and like Dave said in his tweets, there's been a lot of people over the last couple months that have had weddings that have either been postponed or they have had to go through with smaller ceremonies than they had planned, and so just to be able to be a part of something like that is pretty cool. So I saw that story over the weekend, and it reminded me of a few family and friends that we've had over the last couple months that have had to get married and do that in a much smaller way than they had planned, but still making it a special day and doing it with close family and friends is pretty cool.
We talked about in the first hour of the program about how the governor made the announcement today we're going to a phase 3 starting Monday. That's going to open up for some dances, for weddings. So if you've got a wedding after next Monday, it's looking better. And I know there's still quite a few of those for the summer. June's a big month, obviously, for weddings. But, yeah, that has really played havoc with a lot of people's lives that are in that stage of their life. So I'm glad you threw that one out there. All right, Austin, what do you got?
Weekend winner for me is Midwestern MLB general managers. If you look at the MLB draft process, obviously there's only 5 rounds, but a lot of the general managers outside of the coast really cleaned up on a lot of players. A lot of the Texas teams, the two Missouri teams really cleaned up. Chicago did as well. They kept signing players in a time when all these people are, cutting their minor leaguers. They're thinking about getting rid of teams. They're not paying them. These teams are taking chances on more kids, 5 to 7 more kids, which doesn't seem like a lot in a draft that's usually 40 rounds. But they're doubling, or even sometimes more than doubling, their draft class, picking up all these undrafted free agents. So that's just good to see. There's some hope. There's some goodwill left in baseball. And as a Royals fan, I'm partial. I'll credit Dayton Moore for getting 5 of those undrafted free agents that are in the Baseball America top 500, which was the most of any team, and the one that wasn't was number 20 according to Baseball America in their top undrafted seniors list. So Dayton Moore cleaned up. He's providing me some sliver of hope for baseball yet.
No, I agree. They did have to cap those signings at $20,000, which is quite a bit down from what it's been in years past, but you're right. Particularly the ones that are seniors and their eligibility was up. They could have gone back to college for one more year, but they're ready to get out and give it a try for that. So, yeah, Dayton Moore's earned a lot of brownie points around baseball. I always come up with 2 because I'm worried you guys are going to steal one of my first 2. I didn't. So, Austin, you're the double-up guy. Am I okay if I give you 2?
Oh, gosh. I would have to think. I mean, there's golf going on I didn't watch a whole lot of.
Well, that's one of mine. It's the PGA. What a terrific thing that was. One, it was a great field. It was almost every major player in the world, minus Tiger Woods, played in it. It was terrific leaderboard, really good golf. It did not bother me at all watching with really no fans. I mean, yeah, it would have been nice after guys make a great shot, you hear some applause, but it didn't bother me, and it was great theater. It was so wonderful to see them get back out there and get something on live TV. So that a tip of the cap to the PGA. They may have even been a week or two too late doing this, but that's fine. They're up and going now, and you're gonna have golf now every week through the end of the fall for the PGA. My other one is the country of New Zealand. I don't know if you guys are following this, but they have not had a COVID-19 positive case in weeks. In fact, they have now opened things up. They had professional rugby matches going on this weekend. 20,000 fans packed the stadiums. No mask, no social distancing, fans cheering, drinking pop. So they have had remarkable success with the coronavirus. They're back to normal down in New Zealand, so good for them. Somewhere in the world has it completely under control, and they're back playing professional rugby down in New Zealand.
It gives you hope, and now I realize that they have a completely different situation down there than we do here, but at the same time, that's awesome. Like, it just gives you hope that they can completely eradicate it from the entire country, and then they go about life as normal. It's good to see.
Fantastic. Hey, our Sports Nightly Hotline brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. Again, tomorrow, Scott Frost with his first press conference in 3 months. We'll have the highlights for you tomorrow night here on Sports Nightly. Also, it's a Tuesday. Top 10 Tuesday coming your way tomorrow night. We'll be looking forward to that. It's Austin and me on SNBL as we get the DSs underway tomorrow. That'll be fun, right? Good luck, boys. You too. I'll keep you separated.
All right, thanks.
I don't have to look at Ben for a while, so I can beat up on him until he gets back full time.
Good point.
What a good hour. Thanks to Jake Muehlheisen for spending some of his Monday night with us here on Sports Nightly.